Hello, and welcome to Odaacity with Ayantu and Siade. Here at Odaacity, we bring you informed and diverse discussions on the most contentious issues that matter most. The Odaacity podcast is a forum for deliberation, fresh ideas, and critical thinking on current affairs. Yes, and today we're going to be talking about the inclusion of youth and women in the discourse of Oromomuma and the Oromo cause. I sat down with three members of Biqiltu, the DC chapter of the Oromo Youth Association. We began the discussion when I asked Kiya, Waqo, and Irre how they see and experience life as young Oromos living in diaspora. As a young man that's lived back home, but also has some experience with the Western culture. From that perspective, what do you see as one of the most pressing topics for youth in this current state of Oromo cause?
Well, first of all, like you said, I went to school back home and I finished high school back home. So basically, what do you see even in Oromo protests right now is that the younger generation are doing the job. I mean, they're making the job. They're doing the job. Basically, but the thing, what do you see in diaspora here is that you don't see, it's a uniform face. Those people who are doing stuff, it would be better if they have place or platform for the youth or women's to be more involved in this thing. Because when you see it, I mean, in this generation, what I was just saying last time that between me and the older generation that was doing the job, making the Oromomuma, bringing from zero, between them and Kiya, there's three generations if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you take Lanjolata, it's about 70-something years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 22 right here.
Mm-hmm.
So between my age and his age, there's three generations.
Right.
If you see 20 years. And in these three generations, how many knowledge, how many manpower have we lost? If you think about all of that, it really is something that we really have to work on. If you see the women side, you don't see, Oromo women's suffered a lot for this, whole struggle. Most of their husband, you don't even think about the women. So you think about the men who are going after, on the field and all of that. But the thing is, the women suffered the most of it. That's what I think. But the thing is, I'm in the diaspora. When I see this, I talk to a lot of young Oromo girls. I know most of them. They're really smart. They know a whole lot of things. You don't expect. It's really amazing when you think about it. But people they just want to the same face and all of that. That really doesn't help. So I think there should be a platform for the women's and youth. Now I think the thing is I think the older people are understanding that too nowadays because if you see back home, I mean they're doing their job. They're just doing by themselves. It's not all the people. I mean everyone is doing, but the thing is most of it is just the younger generation.
Right.
So they understand what is going on. They know they have the capacity. They have the capacity and they can. Look, I can run better than 40-year-old man if you think about it. I mean, the experience is a really good thing that we can share.
Right.
He can help me with the experience. I'm more energetic.
Right.
So that would help me and help others to be involved more in Oromo stuff, and that way we will be very efficient and very thing that we do would be very compelling. It would be more productive. That's what I really think. And we really have to work on that.
I agree with you. And from my perspective, having lived here most of my life, I have seen that diaspora community grow and grow and grow and waited to see exactly what you're talking about. And it seems that without an actual effort, it won't happen. And I'm curious, what creates that dynamic? What is it in our culture that, I know we have this elder-centric culture, but what wisdom are we losing by incorporating, the principles of Gada, which each grade has its purpose? So do you have any thoughts, maybe what has contributed to this lack of diverse voices in the diaspora?
Well, look, I think it's because when our left was kicked out of the transitional government, most of them fled the country. So they came out to different countries and all of that. So when they came, everybody looked up to them. It's they're doing the job.
Right. So it's definitely important for the youth and the women definitely to get involved. For one, the youth will be our coming generation, and for us to see any change and any freedom for Oromia, it's going to be the youth that will be probably leading that. Not the youth as of now, but in the future. in the near future, it'll be the youth that will be handling that. And so I feel like it's very important for the youth to be involved in the cultural and even possibly political side of what's happening with the Oromos. And for the women, I think I heard Kiya say something before about how the women always are trying to, they're working hard, but they're working behind the scenes a lot of the time. So it's always like the men who are just like trying to put their face on everything. But at the same time, yeah, I feel like a lot of women have like so many important roles in what we're doing. And so I think it's that culture of just like working hard but behind the scenes that I think a lot of women were able to stop being behind the scenes and like, you know, put that hard work and show their face. And I think that would make a lot of difference in improving like the image of the movement and what we're doing. Gives them more like legitimacy, I feel.
Regarding the subject, I always see the people who are in power, which would be like the older men. They especially recently, what I've been seeing is like they've been telling youth and women to build their own organizations and then build themselves up, which I think it's true. Like that is something that needs to be done, but they also have a responsibility to open up space themselves, since they're the ones who have the privilege, who like most political dialogue, social dialogue, it all comes from them usually. So I feel like they also have a responsibility to open up space and then empower like youth and women.
So we started talking about what circumstances do you think are contributing to making this happen here? Is it the individualism of Western society? Is it making people more egocentric? And how are we losing sight of the cause? We're losing sight based on like who's right or wrong, or why did they do this way?
Yeah.
What do you think contributes to that?
I think Kiya brought this up earlier actually, but everybody wanting to like lead something at some point, but there's not everybody supporting what people are leading. And so like we have like all these organizations out here where like people are trying to like, you know, control certain things and like lead like discussions in certain ways, but they're not giving a chance for everybody to contribute and give their ideas and stuff like that. I feel once people begin to realize that support is just as important as leading, then maybe we could see some differences.
Yeah, and what about you? You started talking about it.
And I started. I didn't finish I think what contributed is that, like I said in the beginning, when left the country in 1991, I think like most leaders fled the country. They came to the United States and different Europe countries and, you know, some other countries. But the thing is, when they came, you know, we like the diasporas back then, I think they kind of looked up to them and just be like, they're still the leaders because they know what is going, like, you know, they're into it. And then after that, there was a crisis in Oromo politics. If you see it, 2008 and before that, it was just crisis, fight. Right. And between that, it's just they were fighting with each other. They were like, it wasn't about it, but the youth about all of that. You know, it's all about each other. After a certain point, out of hand, they use. Like I said in the beginning, you know, between myself and Oleta, there's 3 generations. Like he's 70 something. I'm just taking an example of him. Like it's not a personal thing. So between Kiya and Oleta, there's 3 generations. He said like if you take 20 years. So how many knowledge have we lost like in these 3 generations? How many potential? How many energy? Like,
by not including them.
By not including them. But we always look up to them and like of course. We usually say experience is the key. Yeah, of course experience is the key. But the thing is, does that experience really take us anywhere at this point? I mean, if we see from, I'm not like just grading what they did, to be honest. Like, for me to be Oromo, proud of Oromo is just because of what they contributed, you know, with their effort. So what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, of course. At the same time, we need people of experience. At the same time, we need a new energy. That's actually, we need to step up. That's what I always tell the youth. We need to step up regardless, because like we said, ego is the biggest problem in the Oromo community. I mean, if you see like the leaders, so-called self-proclaimed leaders, that I call them, to be honest, at this point you cannot call anyone leader. Because a leader is, to be an activist is really easy. All you need is a laptop, internet, Starbucks coffee, to be honest. That's all you need. But to be a leader, you have to sacrifice your life, you have to sacrifice your career, you have to sacrifice a whole lot of things, your family. That's actually, it's not about you, it's about the people, it's about the goal. That's what really leader is. That's what I see leader. In our politics, it's all about myself, Kiya, you know, this like it's just me. I'm gonna be the leader. I'm gonna be the. This is all the problem. And like, why are you doing this? How can you contribute? How can you have a space for the upcoming generation of women? I mean, there is no way. I don't see any way. Irre and Kiya are fighting, and just there's no room for you, Kiya. It's just it doesn't really happen. So that's a real problem. I think like Oromo politics itself has its own problem. So people like now, let me tell you something. I don't see any Oromo father or mother saying their children participate in Oromo politics. They say like, "Akka politika prendemi." Don't go to politics. I swear to God, this is the truth. Like that's what they say because Oromo politics is a mess. To be honest, it's just a mess. I mean, of course, we're really happy what is happening back when people are really engaged. They know what is happening. They're really fighting for their freedom and their rights. But the thing is, the Oromo past, especially in diaspora, is a mess. So I don't, even my dad sometimes say like, "Kiya, can you just slow down this thing?" That's what he actually says. To be honest, I see why they're saying that. At this point, being Oromo politicians is just you're not really proud of it, It's just like something really you don't want to be called,
Right.
To be honest, I just don't want to be called. I guess I'm being honest right now.
Sure.
That's the thing about it, and like I don't see any way that while this is happening, the youth or the women can be involved, and they wouldn't be interested too. I mean, for Kiya to be involved in something, I need to be something has to attract me. You know what I'm saying? Like I should be seeing something that really drags me to the thing. But I don't see anything. Right. So that's another issue. It's not only about the leaders too. Like the youth is not really discouraged. That's my point. So that's the reason I think that contributed to this thing.
Yeah. The youth feel and women feel disenfranchised from having a seat at the table. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, if there's no room for me, why should I bother engaging? So I understand exactly, yeah. And you talked about in a previous conversation about the need to be organized first to prove that you are worthy of taking the space at the table. So can you talk a little bit about what that means to you?
Well, look, especially we're in diaspora, we have access to everything basically. Like we can do anything we want to do. Like we're in America and we have access to everything. What I'm trying to say on that is that sometimes you would not think that you're a really important person. You don't think that you're the person to do stuff, but you are the right person, because back home people are like they don't have access to anything. They have, if you go protest, if you go speak out, no one is gonna jail you just because of you're in America. Sometimes you have to take yourself privilege. Exactly, that's we have the privilege. It's for us. Is really we really have to think. It would be like you don't have to be like perfect in politics. This politics is not all about like talking on just creating these policies. It's all about the musician contributed to the stuff. If you're a musician, now Oromo singers are the more contributing to this tribe. Believe it or not. More than the politicians. They're influencing the people.
Right.
Chara Bultum song just shakes the, like if you go back home, Waqo went from back home recently. He told me that. It's just like everywhere you go, that song is just, so in any aspect, in any knowledge you have, try to contribute something to your people, because you came out of this people, It's like they give you something, so you need to give back something. So that's basically what I'm trying to say. We all have to, at least, if we cannot do anything, just give out money, like financial support. That's something. That's what makes us great. That's how you do some stuff. It's not like you have to be politicians only. So that's what I'm trying to say though. In America, we can do a lot. We close to diplomats. We have financially better than the country. We can do media stuff. We can do a whole lot of things. So we really need to take ourselves as a really important people. That's what I really think. Regardless of where your knowledge is, where your abilities, like you really have to think that you're special and you can do something for your people, and you have to act on that.
Right. Piggybacking off what we just talked about not having a space at the table, not feeling welcomed, it's almost like you have to overcome that first and prove yourself. So I can see where that would be difficult, and if people don't feel that there is agency for them, we will just squander all this privilege. I've been wondering that for years. We have access to this. We're not going to get arrested. We're not going to get shot in the street for even this. We're talking freely and openly right now. How do we leverage that? That's a privilege. And I see sometimes it could be trauma. Maybe it's trauma, and when people leave or flee, it's more fleeing, persecution. Maybe you reach a safe place and you just don't want to deal with it. I'm not sure what the psychological dynamic is there, but I do see a lot of that. People leave home and then get complacent. There's everything you want is here. It's a creative process. How can I use these tools and opportunities here and create a different way, which I don't see any examples of? What am I going to do to create that? And so...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely important to really don't forget your roots. And once you come here, it's a new world, and you feel like, oh yeah, I can keep my family safe, and I won't have to have any worries. But the thing is, your people are also they're in danger as well back home. And so that's why it's important to, even like you said, whatever you can do, like if you can give money, another thing you can do is advocate. Go to your congressmen, your representatives, and ask them to look into what's happening. Try to reach a certain point that they're going into and looking at the human rights abuses that are happening, and then they're looking into why it's happening, and then they're realizing it's because of misrepresentation in the country. Getting our government involved is also a very good thing. That could help. And that's something that we have the privilege of doing.
With protection here, right. I think people we're not capitalizing on that. So when we were at Caldi's, we were talking about this too, about back home youth are presented with much more responsibility earlier, right? Here it's kind of, you don't have to really become a quote-unquote adult until your 20s or something. And so what impact does that have on the psychology of a young person that either came young here or was born here and doesn't have that sense of responsibility? Like you're saying before, in the rural areas, teenager would have a tremendous amount of responsibility for the household, contributing to that. And with the lack of that happening here, how does that impact the youth voice?
Yeah, so it definitely gives that youth that hasn't grown up in that rural area a chance to get a better education. A lot of times they start school younger, and which is very important because it gives them the opportunity to utilize a lot of resources that colleges and universities have. And so there's a lot of ways that we can make connections to other people just outside of Oromos as well, and advocate to them as well, and spread awareness as well, because it's not just an Oromo thing, it's a human rights thing. And so advocating to others as well is a great way to keep the culture alive and let them know that there's this other culture in Ethiopia that's not just in the region of Ethiopia, that's not just it's not the same,
that's not just the Haile Selassie Menelik thing. Exactly, the history books, that's all they ever talk about.
Exactly. Yeah, it goes back even hundreds and thousands of years.
Thousands.
So it's that's definitely important.
I think on this issue is that even if you see people like Oromo kids who grew up in Finfinne, and if you see people who grew up in rural area or regional states of the country, you see difference, to be honest. And most of kids that I know, they if you grow up in Finfinne, most likely you're going to be Ethiopianist. That's a thing about it. So, but the thing is, in America, you brought up the America part. So, look, what we see is that the people, but the kids, the youth back home, they lived in it. They see how it really hurts, and they experienced it. And here in diaspora, you have more education, you have more access, you will be more mature than the back home because, life experience would give them more of, but education is really the key to be mature, to be, I see it it's open for them to be aware. It depends on family too, but it really creates the gap. I really don't know how we could this can be solved, but the thing is, I think it really, that depends on the family, and we said, the leaders should kind of open the space. That's what I really think. You should be more involved. That's what I think. I just don't have a lot to say on that. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I actually like how things are going right now. I do see a lot of I see the CK Chronicles, Odaacity, even all these OYAs all over the world, OYA Australia, in America, and Canada. I think it's things are looking up in that front, but I always see it as the main Oromo organizations are male dominated, and everything else seems to be it's the other stuff, the youth stuff, the women stuff is just the other stuff, right? It's that other stuff. So I think people's mentality regarding that, it just needs to change. There needs to be sort of a cultural shift in regards to that. And I necessarily don't have all the solutions to that. I don't know how it's gonna be a slow process, because it's deeply ingrained in our culture that the sexism, and also our society is pretty age-based, ageist.
I was talking about that. The elder-centric.
Elder-centric.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a huge cultural shift before we get to the point where it's where it's all inclusive.
Okay. What do you guys think? What do you think about it? Are we kind of at a turning point, as Waqo said?
Yeah, I think when Waqo mentioned about the OYAs, I see a lot has changed. When you see the younger generation, I see a big change. I mean, there are a lot of OYAs. You wouldn't believe it. Like, there's a lot of OYAs. We have OYA DC, we have Minnesota, we have Michigan, we have
Iowa.
we have
Yeah,
all
and
lot of places.
for our listeners who don't know, that's Oromo Youth
Association.
Association.
Yeah, exactly. So when I see that those organizations, trust me, like more than 70% of this OYAs are like, even Michigan, they don't have a lot of guys in there, to be honest. Like they're mostly like girls. And
Interesting.
yeah, so they're more than like most of OYAs are like, even our OYA DC is just 60% is just girls.
Okay.
Right? So it's like what I see is that I really that really makes me happy. Really makes me happy that because now our generation would not be the same because like when we get to the level we'll be like diverse. And I mean I saw it. That's what I was telling you earlier that when I talk to those girls, like they're really smart and like they're like they can contribute to a lot for Oromo people. So that I think in the upcoming years, I think we're gonna see a lot of Oromo women's involved in Oromo politics. I think they're gonna do a good job. I really believe that.
Yeah, if you look at the younger generation and all the potential like future leaders, they are women. I see, like I can count like every name that comes to mind. They're all actually like women. So that's actually it's a really good sign.
Yeah. And so as young guys, what gave you this perspective? I mean, you're very much speaking and supporting the idea of women taking more space, which is not really a message that we hear in our culture, right? So how did you come to view things this way?
A lot of world leaders nowadays are turning to women, and I feel like women they bring another side of diversity into everything. So basically, giving that diversity allows for like more. Well, in anything, diversity is a good thing.
Sure.
Right. And
what about you guys? What was your journey to? Is it just being immersed in Western culture? Is it life experience? What made you come to these realizations?
Well, in one sense, it is because like there was a time when I was just like. I considered myself the American liberal, so I was like really like on issues regarding feminism. Like unapologetically, I am still a feminist, but I don't really consider myself like the classic American liberal anymore. But like in regards to women's rights and feminism, that's still like that's something I still strongly believe, and I think it just stuck with me. I remember Ayantu in one of the podcasts. She was talking about there was this incident I think regarding an Oya, and then there was like they were gonna do an Oya dance, and they asked the Ethiopian group not to do like the Oromo dance. It was something like that, and then she talked about how the woman in the Oya and then the men, how they reacted differently, and then that always like I don't know, it stuck with me because it makes me think like in different situations it's always been like the men's actions that have I don't know, historically even with Oromos it's been men who've been taking the big decisions. So I always think, well, what if it was a woman that things could go way differently? It's just we need that input. It's different perspectives. So.
Right. What about you, Kiya?
Like I said it earlier, like if you see an Oromo struggle, I see like I reflect on that most of the time, and you see a lot of women's you really think that the Wabos are like the fighters were all men. There was a lot of women.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and see the history,
right.
When you see those women, like you can see how women's like have problems and all of that. But being in the field and fighting for that gives you something about women. Like there's something that they have that men's don't have. And that scene, like I said, my dad lived here long, so I grew up with my mom. I mean, my personality would be different if my dad was around. Maybe you never know. But
right.
I think it's not all about like like Waqo said, it's a man, and it's Oromo culture, and it's kind of something like that. But the thing is, my dad was here, my mom was who raised me, and I really saw that like she's strong, and like they have something that really men don't have. You know what I'm saying? So it's really, I don't consider myself being American kind of thing because I came like really in 2012, so it's like but I think this is my view that it has to be like more inclusive. I really, because like we all have different ideas and we can all bring it together and we can make a good thing out of it. As if it's all man, it's just we lacking something that we might not think. You might not think so, but we really lacking something. That's why we really need women's inclusiveness in this kind of things. I think.
How can we keep our Oromomuma and the wisdom of collectivism, that we have ingrained in our culture, while we leverage the more individualistic, the privileges that we spoke of that we have here in the United States? How do we hold both of them at the same time?
That's a big question. And then if we solve that, Oromos are
I know.
Right?
It's
Yeah. And maybe we're right in the middle of it, so we can't see that.
Mhm.
But I do see you all as change agents.
To be honest, but the thing is, like, when you see this Oromo leaders, like, who brought out Oromomuma to life, is the people, those people, back then, they have education. I know most, like, I can call out, like, 10 people that, like, really were involved in in Oromo politics back in 60s, but they had their own degree. And they have good life. I mean, I know like people who like had their own driver in Ethiopia working for the government and left all that and go to Botswana or to fight. And later on, he went to United States, like college in America. He went back and just went to Botswana. Actually, we like, you know, like I said, to be a leader, you really have to sacrifice stuff. And like, you have to be selfless. That's what we really need. And I think like you say, we might be in the middle of it. Like we don't see it. But the thing is, the upcoming generation, I think somehow seeing all what is happening back home, being honest, like really like touched me. Like all those people died, our age, and like they have goals, and like they have plans. You know, they have family. You know, they're saying like, you know, they have a lot to live, but they didn't see that. I mean, they were not able to. So seeing that will really, anyone who's really have ego or something, someone that might change this mind. I don't think that people would just seeing that and be really selfish. I don't think that really doesn't make sense. So seeing all of that will actually change a lot, you know, people's mind, I think. Yeah. And really, we're gonna get over it, I hope. And the upcoming generation will change that. Definitely will change that.
I don't think it's they're like mutually exclusive.
Okay.
But as Oromos, we should still be able to look at our culture, look at our Ada, and then point out to some things that we cannot continue in the future. There are some aspects of our culture that we should be able to say, no, you know what, even though it was done in the past, maybe not anymore. And then we should also be able to look at Western culture, especially individualism, and then find aspects of it that will be beneficial for our society. I mean, and back home, it's the mentality most people have is, you work for the greater good. It's not just for your own life. So if you're improving your life, it's meant to be so you can help your family. That is like the big idea. Right. So in that, I don't know, we just have to find the balance. And I think it's just happening naturally too. Yeah. With like Western media. I think it's going to be like a natural.
Yeah, and probably a generational thing. Yeah. I mean, it can't happen in just one generation, I think. Well, thank you so much, guys, for sitting down and talking with us today. And hopefully this will be the beginning of many more conversations. It's been really refreshing to hear these ideas coming from specifically young men. And I really look forward to the work that you all are doing. And hopefully next time we'll get some of the young women to join us too. Unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today.
Thank you for listening to the Audacity podcast with Ayantu and Siadi. Thank you for listening to the Audacity podcast or suggestions for guests you'd like to hear. Please let us know. You can email us at theaudacity@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at the Audacity podcast. You can email us at theaudacity@gmail.com. Audacity is brought to you by Dagali Media and the Underground Media Collective. Audacity podcast. Audacity is brought to you by Dagali Media and the Underground Media Collective.